Welcome back, one and all, ladies and Gaussian distributions, to Mathamopoulos. Now, this video might be just a bit different than some of my other videos on the channel, but I promise it's still about math. But before we dive into the topic of the video, I just want to explain something that is truly perplexing to me. If you don't want to hear me rant for 3 minutes about literally nothing, there'll be a timestamp up right now. So in the planning stages of this video, I knew that I would need to draw, and I would need to draw a lot. So I had to borrow someone's drawing tablet. All my previous videos, I've just been using literal MS Paint and a mouse, so all of my drawings are incredibly crusty. This drawing tablet would make drawing so much quicker and easier. It would slightly decrease the crust factor. Oh, trust me, I'm still using MS Paint. And it would also probably increase the visual interest of the video, keeping people watching for longer.
So I managed to borrow the person's tablet, so I brought it with me, and I took it out of the box and promptly ignored the instructions. And then I am trying to set up the tablet, which only has one single female USB port, so the cable has to split into like 4 other cables. I start plugging in all the cables and unplugging and moving cords out of my computer. Kind of looks like I'm hooking it up to some sort of life support system every time I use this tablet. So finally I plug in the tablet, turn it on, and it just doesn't work. The computer was seeing the pen as like a mouse input device, so I could move the mouse cursor on the screen with the pen. But that's not the point of the tablet. The point of the tablet is so I can draw on the tablet. I tried restarting my computer a couple times, and this didn't solve anything. Messed around with the cables, I still had the same problem. I spent about 30 minutes setting this thing up, and I just could not figure out what the problem was. So, sadly, I pulled the plug. So I resorted to my next victim, my laptop, to see if that would work. I plug it in, I route the cables all the way across my room, I powered it on, and I had the same problem. I resorted to looking up the issue on the internet finally, and through my cyber sleuthing and my digging, I came across a short where a guy had the same issue as me. And all he did to fix the issue was reverse the USB-C cable. Wow, I thought to myself, this can't work. It worked. From all of my knowledge of electronics and computer hardware, I'm literally taking computer hardware engineering as a minor in college. This should not happen. USB-C is a fully reversible cable, meaning it should work the same way, no matter how you plug it in. But Wacom, using some sort of dark evil black magic, removed this feature and made it only work one way. Now, I hear you asking, well, maybe you should have read the instructions. And to that I say, yeah, you're right. In all seriousness, I actually did try looking in the manual, and I guess I'm just blind, because I literally did not see the part where it says the USB-C cable only works one way. They should have maybe marked the USB in some way or keyed it so that it would only fit one way. I was so confused. I tried going to their website to see if there was a pamphlet I was missing from the box, but this just made the problem worse, as their website has every single piece of documentation from any tablet they've ever made unorganized. So that's like if you were to go to my website, link in the description by the way, and you were to click on the playlists tab and just see naked URLs that weren't labeled at all, leading you to just click at random ones until you made it to the one you wanted. I thought maybe the single USB-C cable that the tablet uses is just under way too much stress. It has to do so much, and whenever you try to run a display off of a USB-C tablet, that is an incredibly taxing thing to do on a USB cable. Some USB-C cables don't even have enough bandwidth to do this in the first place. But then why would they even choose a single USB-C cable to do this if they knew it was going to be under so much stress constantly? Would it have not been cheaper in the first place to just produce multiple cables instead of having to customize in-house this awful dongle thing? I just don't get it, man. What's the thought process here? My rage and my confusion is straight up mathematical, as each second and time that I think about this, my rage approaches infinity. Mr. Mathamopoulos, I hear you asking, why are you losing your midpoint over a minor inconvenience that maybe cost you a couple minutes? Well, I'll tell you why. It's because this video broke me. I'm but a shell method of my former self, just a derivative of the function I once was. This video made me go crazy. The amount of time I've put into this stupid video about stupid fake animals, it's embarrassing. Now, with all of that over, Mathamopoulos is finally proud to present the Pokemon vs. Trucks Hypothetical.
Mr. Mathamopoulos, I hear you asking, where did this horrible idea come from? And why have you wasted so much of your youth on it? Is this why women don't talk to you? I'm glad you asked, because I'm asking myself the same thing. This hypothetical comes from the dark, twisted, evil mind of my nemesis. He approached me and asked just a simple question that I think he knew would infect my mind like some sort of parasite. So who wins, he asked. 4 sentient semi-trucks, or 3 random Pokemon? Me, a semi-truck-loving, red-blooded American, said duh, the trucks win that. And Logan, yes, that Logan, says that no, Pokemon win that one easily. We would then spend the next few months debating on and off. Each one of these conversations would end up lasting multiple hours before we just gave up because we weren't getting anywhere. One day we thought that with Logan's knowledge of statistics, he could actually figure out the probability of 3 randomly selected Pokemon being able to defeat 4 trucks. Yes, this conversation did last over 3 hours. Why do you ask? So how did we actually go about doing this? Well, Logan and a couple others made a spreadsheet with every single Pokemon on it. Yes, all 1,025 of them. And assigned them a number value based on how many trucks they could beat in a fight at minimum and at maximum. Now, this was trying to account for a couple things, like statistical bias, which was probably the biggest problem with the entire experiment. Well, we'll get into that much later. The fact that Pokemon don't actually exist, so trying to apply real-world physics to them is kind of very difficult. Also, like the different levels of Pokemon, and oh boy. So after we made the spreadsheet and got all the numbers, we just needed to find the probability that 3 randomly selected Pokemon from the list would be able to defeat 4 trucks. So basically 3 of the selected Pokemon would all add up to 4 or more. In this video, I'll just be going over the first 151 Pokemon and how they fare against the trucks, because a video going over all 1,025 of them in depth would take way too long and way too much effort for the amount of return, as well as the fact that I only really know anything about the first 151 because I have a life and don't allocate brain space remembering 1,025 different fictional animals. Before we can get into the first 151 though, we have to establish a couple ground rules. First, the arena. The arena is a large open plain without any weather or water, and it stretches to infinity. The trucks. There are 4 sentient semi-trucks. Yes, they are sentient. So, this means that they can feel pain and do have the ability to question their mortality. Think of them like the Cars from hit 2006 Pixar movie, Cars. And yes, they still do run on fuel. The trucks start some distance from the Pokemon. This really isn't too important. And they start at their maximum velocity. The trucks in this scenario have loaded trailers, meaning the trucks weigh just about 80,000 pounds and can travel upwards of 80 to 100 miles per hour. The Pokemon. The Pokemon are not under any direct command of a trainer or effects of items. What the heck does this mean? Explanation. In Pokemon, there are a ton of different items that would either give the Pokemon an uninteresting amount of advantage or completely change how the whole thing works. I didn't want to deal with all that. The Pokemon's moves also exclude moves learnt from TMs, which are CDs that can give Pokemon abilities for some reason. Don't ask me how this works. Victory. A victory condition is simply when all Pokemon or trucks have been destroyed, immobilized, or broken beyond functionality. This means if a Pokemon were to just fly up high and avoid the truck, they wouldn't necessarily win, because in this scenario they aren't destroying the truck, and in theory the trucks could just outlast most, if not all, Pokemon in a war of attrition, because Pokemon need to eat, and a truck can just turn its engine off and wait. Lastly, the biggest controversy of this entire project was what continuity to use for the Pokemon. You see, if you don't have any idea what I'm talking about, it's gonna sound like I'm absolutely insane. It's a little bit because I am absolutely insane, but you see, Pokemon kind of exist in like 4 different realms or pieces of media, and each interpretation paints the Pokemon in a completely different light. The card game, the TV show, the video games, and the lore, they all contradict each other in so many different ways. We kind of just ended up using a mix of mainly the lore and the games, and we'll see why this leads to a lot of problems in the future. The Pokemon cards don't really paint a good picture of how powerful the Pokemon are. I mean, there really isn't that much to go off of, except for the names of the moves on the card and the pretty art. The anime exists in this weird kind of limbo in my mind where Pokemon are both incredibly strong and incredibly weak. Or maybe just the humans in this world are incredibly powerful and can just resist being shocked by 30 million lightning bolts every day. I don't know. And the problem with the games is that they just don't represent the abilities of the Pokemon well at all, according to the totally asinine lore. Like seriously, this stuff gets so ridiculous very, very quickly. Now, I'm sure many of you have already deduced this, but I have to preface this by saying that I am a Pokemon hater. I am Pokemon's biggest hater out here. I do not like the games, the cardboard. The show is okay, and the lore is the most egregiously stupid thing I have ever had the displeasure of having to listen to Logan yap and flap his gums about, and that's saying something. Now, the lore paints Pokemon as these powerful gods that happen to walk among a cardboard world of pathetic man-flesh. Pokemon for no reason are capable of flying faster than the speed of sound, burning hotter than the surface of the sun, and punching stronger than any atomic weapon. Now, the lore happens to be somewhat of a source of bias because it's all up to interpretation to a certain extent, but I think we've gone on yapping about nothing for far too long, so without further ado,
it's time for the moment you've been waiting for. Da 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 da.
So I'm pretty much just going to be covering the Pokemon that I think are like the most important or iconic or have the most to talk about. Because a lot of these Pokemon just absolutely get bodied by the truck. So here we go. Number 1, Bulbasaur. Now I really don't think this botanical frog has anything on the 80,000 pounds of pure red-blooded American steel and rubber. So I'm just going to go out on a limb and say he loses this one. Ivysaur, similar to his pre-evolution, he's cooked. Venusaur. Venusaur actually does stand a far better chance against the trucks, mainly because of his vines. He could use these to try and tip over the trucks, which would render them inoperable. But hitting the trucks could actually prove to be difficult, because even though the trucks are heavy, they still have a top speed of, 70 to 100 miles per hour, like we talked about, and they would be engaging in some sort of evasive maneuvers. Charmander. Though he is a fire type, the truck's natural-born predator, he is a pretty weak fire type by the standards of other Pokemon later on in the list, trust me. Charmeleon. Now a little stronger with a hotter flame, Charmeleon would have a much better chance at igniting the fuel inside of the truck, but this would prove to be extremely difficult for him. Charizard. Yeah, no, he solos easily. He can just fly and literally melt all of the trucks. Like, the trucks stand no chance against this guy. Squirtle. He is just a turtle that seems to be foaming at the mouth. Alright, next. War Turtle. Here we get introduced to a move called Hydro Pump. Pretty much if any Pokemon has Hydro Pump, they just kind of win, much to my chagrin. Bars? It's kind of like a big pressure washer beam, I guess. Blastoise. Hydro Pump times 2. Caterpie. No matter how hungry this caterpillar is, he ain't got nothing on the truck. Now, in the script for this part of the video, the words cat crane are written in parentheses, and I really don't know what this is supposed to mean. Metapod. He has a move called Harden, but that doesn't even matter. Even if the outside is hard, the inside is still soft and squishy. So if you were to get hit by the truck, the inside would be turned into a thick raspberry jelly. Butterfree. At first, Butterfree could defeat one truck at max on the spreadsheet, but I heroically and valiantly fought against this injustice because that is pure baloney. Kakuna, refer back to Metapod. Beedrill. Well, Beedrill's stinger isn't really large enough to damage the truck in any meaningful way, and poison has no effect because letter 1, it's a truck, and number B, it's a steel type, and steel is actually immune to poison. Pidgey, they're a pigeon. Pidgeotto, they're a pigeon. Pidgeot, they're a pigeon. And this is where the insanity of Pokemon lore kicks in. They may be a pigeon, but that doesn't stop them from flying at Mach 2 speed. For some reason, they have a move called Hurricane, which is literally just the ability to generate hurricane-force winds. Why is this pigeon so strong? Ekans, it's just snake written backwards. No, seriously, look at it. Arbok, it's just cobra written backwards. Real clever. Pikachu. I still absolutely disagree with this entry, but the council will just not budge on it. The only shot I think Pikachu has against the trucks is Iron Tail, because his electric attacks are just that, electricity. They wouldn't really have an effect on the truck. Semi-trucks have been struck by lightning bolts and have survived. Briefly, I wondered if an electrical arc could have ignited the gasoline inside the truck, but an electrical arc can only ignite gasoline if it's a vapor, hence why a spark plug works to ignite the gasoline inside of an engine. But I really don't think Pikachu's Iron Tail could really do that much damage because it's physically small. It's not like he's going to be able to slice through the entire truck with his tail. He's 1'4". With regards to speed, he has agility, which boosts his speed, but again, he's still not faster than the truck. And yes, he could dodge side to side, but he would eventually get tired out before the truck would because it's a machine. Whatever. Raichu is just Pikachu, but literally better. Sandslash, maybe he could like cut the brake lines of the truck or whatever. I don't know. Nidorina can literally destroy boulders, so they could smash up the front end of the truck pretty well. Nidoqueen is even stronger than Nidorina. Nidorino is Nidorina but male. Nidoking is Nidoqueen but stronger. Do not call me sexist, please. I guess that's just how it is. Clefairy. Clefable. Vulpix, again a fire type, but a pretty weak one at that. Ninetales, a fire type. Yeah, they cook the trucks on an open barbecue, literally. Jigglypuff, their whole thing is putting people to sleep. Obviously, this won't work on a truck. Wigglytuff, same thing. Oddish, he's a literal vegetable. Gloom. Man, Oddish kind of let himself go for a bit, didn't he? Vileplume. He lost all that extra weight, and even though I drew him absolutely cut like a diamond, he still gets obliterated. Venonat, I don't even know what creature this is supposed to be. Venomoth can fly, but can't really deal any damage beyond that. Diglett, oh my god, we're only on number 50. He's like a mole creature, I guess? I mean, he can't really do much. Dugtrio, initially I was shocked when I saw him on the spreadsheet. How does he defeat 2 to 4 trucks? You know, in my head, Dugtrio is just 3 Diglets. And I don't know about you, but I'm pretty sure 3 times 0 equals 0. Dugtrios literally cause earthquakes when they dig, apparently. Oh, okay then. Also, we use Dugtrio as an example, comparing them to Pidgeot or Pidgeotto. I don't remember which pigeon it was. But in the games, why is Dugtrio faster than a bird that flies at Mach 2? I'm still upset about this. Meowth, they're just a cat. Persian, they were at 1 truck max, but looking at their moveset and their Pokedex entries, they have nothing special at all about them. They're just a big cat. Their claws aren't going to be able to do anything. Psyduck, they're a duck. Golduck, one word, Hydro Pump. Mankey, return to monkey. Primeape, fighting type. What does this mean? Well, in-game, fighting types do extra damage to steel types, so yeah. Growlithe, they're a cool little fire dog, but they're not really that strong. Arcanine, definitely strong enough. Poliwag, a literal tadpole. Poliwhirl, a frogman. Poliwrath, pretty much just the same design as the last frogman, like seriously. But they could absolutely take out a truck because they're a fighting water mix. So they have Hydro Pump. Abra, they're not that strong yet. Kadabra, have psychic abilities which emit alpha waves, which cause machinery to malfunction. This is a line directly taken out of the Pokédex. The trucks are just cooked. Alakazam, refer back to Badabra? Machop, fighting type, but why does he only get 1 truck, I hear you asking? Well, it's the return of our boy Isaac Newton. This time it's not for calculus, but rather physics. We're going to be covering Newton's first law, the law of inertia. When an object is at motion, it will want to stay at motion until acted upon from an outside source. What does this mean? Well, when the truck is moving at 100 miles an hour and Machop punches it, the truck still wants to move at 100 miles an hour, even though it's absolutely destroyed. So Machop might be able to single-handedly obliterate the engine, but he cannot stop the actual 80,000 pound truck in its tracks and would still get ran over. We're going to be covering the law of inertia a lot in these next upcoming Pokemon. Machoke, fighting type. Machamp. This is just more Pokemon lore baloney. His punches can apparently send people over the horizon. With one arm, he can move a mountain, and he can throw 1,000 punches in 2 seconds. This guy isn't a Pokemon, he is a bioweapon. Weepinbell. He spits a fluid that, quote, dissolves anything. Where the discussion came from with this one is that, well, his attacks are poison type, but Steel is immune to poison. So going off the game, he would be 0-0, but going off the lore, he's a 1-1. Victory Bell. Refer back to Weepinbell. Tentacool. He's a squid, but kinda cooler. Tentacruel. He's a squid, but kind of crueler. Geodude. He's a literal floating pebble with arms. Graveler. Apparently he can just explode, and if that wasn't enough, they have Earthquake, which, yeah, you guessed it, just makes earthquakes. Golem. Refer back to Graveler. Ponyta. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Fire Pokemon, but a weak one at that. Rapidash. Yeah, really, really hot fire, and they're also really fast. They can run at like 150 miles per hour for some reason. Oh, okay. Slowpoke. Bro has no chance. Slowbro. Still super slow, but kind of strong, I guess. The thing eating its tail is a Shelder. We'll talk more about this later. Magnemite. It could use its magnetism to maybe knock over a truck, but I personally don't think they're strong enough or weigh enough. It says that they're able to draw in iron objects from over 300 feet away, but I think Magnemite would just be pulled towards the truck and get stuck to it. Also, for some reason, they can increase the temperature 3.6 degrees within 330 feet of them. Why this is included in the Pokédex, I don't know. Magneton could literally just like crush the truck, I guess, and also has a line that says it destroys all moisture in the vicinity. What were they doing? Farfetch'd is literally just a bird with a vegetable. I guess this is payback for the Emu War. Dodrio. Refer back to Doduo. Seal, they're just like a seal. Dugong. I think they're still just a seal. Grimer is a literal pile of goop. Muck. This thing is an absolute bioweapon. Why are 10-year-olds allowed to take this thing with them? It can destroy entire ecosystems. This isn't even the only Pokemon either. Pokemon lore just makes no sense. This thing should literally be classified as a bioterrorist. The council said he was acidic, but reviewing the Pokédex entries, there is no mention of it to my knowledge. So, 0-0. Funny story about Muck, though. When I was just a wee little Mathamopoulos, I really liked Shroomish, and one of my siblings would always try to come up to me saying they had a cool Shroomish for me. They would hand over this card, and it was Muck. Every single time. Years passed. I managed to escape the Pokemon Hive virus, and a couple years later, they approached me again, saying that they had a Shroomish card that they didn't want. I wasn't really into Pokemon, and my thought process was, well, I mean, if they don't want it, I guess I'll have it then. As I was reaching for this card, I briefly paused and thought, what if this was Muck again? There's no way. But I dismissed this, because this was back when I still had faith in humanity. Shelder. He gets like one truck, maybe, if he gets unlucky with how the collision happens. His hard shell could cause damage, but there's no way it survives the impact. Refer back to Cocoon. Cloyster. More durable than Shelder. The shell is described as pretty much invincible, saying it with Ghastly. They're a literal ghost, so they can't be killed, but can't really do too much damage. It uses a specific move called Destiny Bond, where it chooses a target and Ghastly faints / dies, but so does the target. Haunter. Also a ghost. Could literally destroy the truck from the inside. Gengar. Refer back to Haunter. Onix, otherwise known as the coolest Pokemon to ever exist. It is a big rock snake. He solos, just because of his cool factor. But I feel like its dimensions and weight make no sense. It is a 29-foot-long snake made of rocks, and it only weighs 463 pounds? People have weighed more than Onix. Wait, how? Also, again, children are just allowed to carry this thing with them. Like, what? Drowsy. His whole gimmick is that he hypnotizes people, but I really don't think he could hypnotize a truck. Hypno. Refer back to Drowsy. Krabby. It's just a crab. Kingler, possibly the dumbest entry on the entire list. Half the Pokédex entries are just talking about how powerful he is, and then the other half talk about how stupid he is. He is so unbelievably clumsy. It has one massive claw apparently, and just by moving it too quickly, it can knock itself off balance. How can it knock itself off balance? It has 6 legs! This guy should be a 0-0 in my opinion. It's not even like it can open its claw wide enough to do any damage against the truck. This guy's ridiculous. Number 100. We're so close. Voltorb. He has a suicide bomb move. 101. Oh my god, how are there 50 more of these? Electrode also has a suicide bomb, but according to one single Pokédex entry, it can use it multiple times, which is baloney. In the game it gets knocked out just like Voltorb, and if we operate via the same logic, maybe it can survive multiple suicide bombs, but it still gets knocked out and has to recover. But in the time it's knocked out, it's a literal sitting duck, so he should still be a 1 at max. But no, the council won't budge. Execute. They're just a literal carton of eggs. I mean, one of them is already broken. Executor. I don't know how eggs turn into a tree, but okay. Literally has magic psychic damage. I don't know what that means, but that's what I wrote in the script. Cubone. Can't really do anything, but according to the Pokédex, it wears the skull of its mother. Why do they write these things? Marowak. Refer back to Cubone. Hitmonlee. Punches really hard, but again, Isaac Newton. Law of inertia. Hitmonchan, Newton's first law of inertia. Lickitung. Coughing. Has that like Destiny Bond suicide bomb move again. Wheezing. Refer back to Coughing. Rhyhorn. Can literally destroy mountains? Rhydon. Refer back to Rhyhorn. Chansey. Haha, not a chance. Get it? I'm so sorry. This video has taken a severe mental toll on myself. Tangela, Seaweed Man. I used to actually have a recurring nightmare when I was a young little Mathamopoulos, where a Seaweed Man hunted me and my family down on the 4th of July. It wasn't Tangela, it was just like this weird seaweed creature. I don't think I ever really truly recovered from that one. Kangaskhan. Punch really hard, but Newton's first law. Horsey, it's just a seahorse. Seadra, refer back to Horsey. Goldeen, literally infamous for being worthless. Sea King, refer back to Goldeen. Staryu, it's just a starfish. Starmie, they have Hydro Pump. Mr. Mime is possibly the dumbest entry here. He can place invisible walls, and we don't really know how strong they are. So they're either indestructible, or the trucks would just blow straight through the walls. Therefore, 0-4. Scyther, a bug man with big meaty claws. Jinx has ice moves, which the descriptions of ice moves in Pokemon games apparently say they can freeze the literal air? I don't know how that works, but okay. Electabuzz has a move that increases damage the heavier the opponent is. Okay. Magmar, fire. Pinsir, Bugman. Tauros can hit really hard, but again, Newton's first law. Magikarp, also known for being worthless. But the council tried saying it could beat a truck, because in one single Pokédex entry it says it can leap mountains. They claimed the kinetic energy of Magikarp's fall would be enough to destroy a truck completely. According to Magikarp Jump, the max jump height of a Magikarp is about 340 meters. To find out how much energy this Magikarp would have, we can use this equation. Just to make sure everyone's on the same page, there are 2 states of energy, kinetic and potential energy. Think of a rock on a hill. When it sits on top of the hill, stationary, all of its energy is potential. But when the rock starts to roll down the hill, it converts more and more of its potential energy into kinetic energy. So this equation solves for the potential energy due to gravity. So the higher the object is in the air, the more energy it can potentially convert into kinetic energy if it were to fall. So Magikarp's height is about 339.84 meters high. That is its max jump height. Little g in the equation is acceleration due to gravity, which is 9.8 meters per second squared, and m is simply Magikarp's mass, which is about 10 kilograms. If Magikarp were to fall to the ground, this would convert all of his potential energy into kinetic energy. Crunching these numbers would result in 33,000 joules of kinetic energy. This may sound like a lot, but semi-trucks are built to withstand well over 1 megajoule of energy, or 1 million joules. An impact of 30,000 joules is likely to cause major dents and slight body deformities, but not total destruction. 0-0, Logan. 0-0. Gyarados. Actually, this guy does beat the trucks, though. He's busted. Lapras. Ice again. Ditto. His whole shtick is that he can copy other Pokemon forms and moves, and it can also turn into the truck. So I guess at a minimum he gets 1, and at max 4, depending on who's on his team. Eevee. Nah. Vaporeon. In terms of Pokemon truck combat, they suck. Jolteon. Even after much argumentation, I think Jolteon is still way too high. Their lightning attacks would be completely ineffective, as we've already discussed in other moves, but whatever. Flareon apparently is too slow, and its fire capabilities are pretty bad in comparison to other types. But in my opinion, I think Flareon should actually have more, and Jolteon should have less, but what do I know? Porygon, other than giving kids seizures, this thing literally couldn't do anything against the trucks because it's not real. Ammonite. Ammonite? Did I say that right? Doesn't matter, not a chance. Also, wait, bars? Omastar? Hard shell. At this point, I'm really starting to doubt the hard shell defense, but whatever. Kabuto. Kabutops. Aerodactyl hits really hard and then dies. Snorlax weighs literally 1 ton and would definitely mess up the front end of the truck. Articuno. This is a legendary Pokemon, which pretty much means they're really, really strong for no reason. So every single legendary from here on is a 4-4 instantly. Zapdos, legendary. Moltres, legendary. Dratini, he's just a little worm, I don't think he has anything. Dragonair, this little worm does though. He can literally just create hurricanes, again with the move Hurricane. Dragonite, apart from sounding like some sort of hard mode or from Terraria, refer back to Dragonair. Mewtwo, legendary. Mew, legendary. Oh my god, we're done. So now that's all done, we can finally actually use statistics to calculate the probability that the Pokemon win. Yeah, you probably forgot this is a math video, I did too. So before we really get into it, we're gonna first visualize some more simple probabilities, like the classic coin flip, or the chance Logan will ever reproduce. This one's easy, it's just 0. How do we actually calculate probability? That's a great question. The easiest representation of probability is probably the coin flip. Heads or tails, there's 2 possible options. It's a 50% chance you'll get a heads, and a 50% chance that you'll get a tails. Forget that the coin can technically land on its side. Another representation of probability is a 6-sided die. There's a 1/6 chance of rolling a 1, a 1/6 chance of rolling a 2, etc. When you add up all of your different outcomes, they should add up to 1. 1 means 100%, so 100% of the time you flip a coin, it will be heads or tails. Keep in mind that I said heads or tails, because language does matter in statistics. You have or, and then you have and. And means that the 2 probabilities happen. Let's look back at the coin flip scenario. If you flip a coin twice, what is the chance that you get 2 heads? So heads and heads. We're going to just use some letters to represent the potential outcomes of these scenarios. So all the possible scenarios you could get is heads heads, heads tails, tails heads, and tails tails. So the chance you get 2 heads is a 1/4 probability. We can see that through the visual representation of writing out each scenario, but mathematically we would simply take the probability of getting a heads and multiply it by the probability of getting another heads. So 1/2 times 1/2 is 1/4. This is also a way to check for independence. If you flip heads, what is the chance you get heads the next time you flip the coin? It should still be 50%. This means that... oh man. What independence means is that the events should not affect each other in any way. Non-independence, however, is different. Let's say you have 2 red marbles and 2 blue marbles in a bag. If you reach into the bag and pull out a red marble and swallow it, the next time you reach into the bag, there's only a 1/3 chance of pulling a red marble instead of a 1/2 chance. This is called without replacement, and this is what we'll be using when we're generating the random Pokemon. So that means that the Pokemon can only be selected once. If you were to cough up said marble and put it back into the bag like a degenerate, then that is with replacement. The original probability has been restored. Or is a little bit different. Remember, we were talking about and or, yeah. Or can include both outcomes. Like I said above, you can flip a heads or a tails. So let's look at the dice scenario. The chances of rolling a 1 is 1/6. What is the chance that you roll a 1 or a 2? The probability changes because out of the 6 outcomes, 2 are 1 or 2. So 1/3 of the possible outcomes satisfy our initial condition of getting a 1 or a 2. Now, I know what you're saying, Mr. Mathamopoulos, what does this have to do with Pokemon? I'm getting there. As we discussed, we have already converted each Pokemon into a soulless numerical value, so we can now do actual math. The number is the amount of trucks that Pokemon can beat. We have a minimum and at maximum. And we have 3 Pokemon at a time, so we have to find the probability that the 3 randomly selected Poke numbers add up to 4 or more. So, to do this, we simulate every possible scenario that the Pokemon win. We find the probability that the randomly selected Pokemon add up to 4 or more trucks. To simulate this, we found the probability of every possible combination adding up to 4 or more. If you were to continue like this, you would realize this would actually take a while. If you're lazy and a genius like me, you would see that you can just calculate the chance that Pokemon lose so that P1 plus P2 plus P3 is less than P4. And it would be less work, because there are actually more winning combinations than there are losing combinations. So we calculated the probability that the Pokemon lose, and then subtracted it from 1 to find their chance of winning. For example, to simulate the scenario that all 3 selected Pokemon beat 0 trucks in total, we would perform the following calculation. So to find the probability of getting a 0-0-0 combination, so this would equal the probability that the generated Pokemon defeats 0 trucks, and the probability that Pokemon 2 defeats 0 trucks, and the probability that Pokemon 3 beats 0 trucks. As we discussed above, and is basically the same thing as multiplying, so we would multiply those probabilities together. So now, substituting P0 for the potential amount of Pokemon that equals 0, dividing by the total number of possible Pokemon to be selected, we get this equation. Now notice that the potential number of Pokemon and the total number of Pokemon are subtracted by 1. This is because, as we mentioned above, we're doing this experiment without replacement. So when one Pokemon is selected, they're removed from the possible pool of selection, and there are also less Pokemon. So crunching that equation, we now have the probability of getting a 0-0-0 Pokemon scenario. And we keep doing this for every scenario, 0-0-1, 0-0-2, etc. And we add up all the resulting probabilities. Some of these will end up being duplicated because the order of the Pokemon drawn doesn't affect probability, but it can still happen in a different order. So, the first generation of Pokemon, the original 151. Here are their minimum and maximum scores total. This is how many Pokemon are 0s and 4s, and all the numbers in between. So finally, oh my god, this gives us a probability that 3 randomly selected Pokemon win against 4 sentient semi-trucks. Drumroll. 31% of the time. At worst, and about 48.5% at best. So next time you're betting in an illegal underground Pokemon fight club, you might want to take the bet on the trucks. But more importantly, Logan was wrong! We can play around with these numbers a bit more, so we're going to try to establish a little bit more value to them, so we're going to simulate 30 trials. 30 is the sweet spot for trials that makes a standard deviation smaller. Standard deviation allows for error in the data. We want to make this error as small as possible while also being possible. The typical standard deviation calculation for measurement is this. In this scenario with the Pokemon though, it is a binomial distribution, so we can't use this. We have to use a different equation. A binomial distribution is used here because the Pokemon win or lose. There is no other potential option. It is a success-failure question. Now, I was just going to go over this binomial distribution and standard deviation and all that stuff, but at the end of the day, it's kind of a waste of time because the resulting data and numbers we get from it really don't mean anything, and it really does not help to clarify any of our numbers. So I'm just going to remove that part of the video to save myself some time, because this video has taken like almost a year at this point, and I just wanted to get done, man. Oh yeah, and Pokemon actually win when you take into account every single generation. But that's not important. Listen, at the end of the day, this video is not meant to be taken seriously at all. Me and Logan argue like a married couple, and we both yearn for it. This is a purposefully dumb hypothetical that was never meant to really be thought about for more than 12 seconds. And of course, me and Logan thought about it for 13 seconds. Do I really think Pokemon win? I don't know anymore, man. I just want to move on to new Mathamopoulos videos. Now that we got that all out of the way finally. Remember, kids, if you liked the video, give it a thumbs up, leave a comment, maybe even subscribe, hit the bell notification, and I'll see you in the next Mathamopoulos episode. And before I let you go, be smart, be safe, and don't do anything too stupid.